My name is Sarah and I'm 38 years old. As a project manager for a global tech firm, my life is a constant juggling act of deadlines, client calls, and travel. It's a career I love, one that demands every ounce of my focus, but it also means sacrificing precious moments with my 5-year-old daughter Lily. Being a single mom amplifies that guilt, that constant whisper in the back of my mind asking if I'm doing enough. So, when a crucial 2-week project popped up in Austin, the familiar anxiety of finding reliable childcare immediately set in. It wasn't just anyone I could trust with Lily. She's my entire world, a vibrant, curious little girl with a laugh that could chase away any shadow. After agonizing over various options, I finally settled on what felt like the safest bet: my elder sister, Susan. Susan, 42, lives in a sprawling suburban house, the kind with a manicured lawn and a swing set, just a couple of hours' drive from me. She has 2 kids, Tom and Emma, who are around Lily's age, 7 and 6 respectively. They were always a bit, shall we say, spirited. Spoiled, if I'm being honest with myself, but in a carefree way that seemed harmless enough. Susan had always presented herself as the quintessential homemaker, perfectly capable and willing to help. "Of course I'll take her, Sarah," she chirped, her voice dripping with what I mistook for genuine warmth. "It'll be like a mini vacation for her, playing with her cousins." I swallowed my reservations, clinging to the idea that family was family, and Susan would surely treat Lily like her own. The first few days of my trip were a whirlwind of meetings and presentations, but my thoughts kept drifting back to Lily. Phone calls and video chats with her felt off. She'd barely meet my eye, her usual bubbly demeanor replaced by a quiet subduedness. When I'd ask about her day, she'd give one-word answers, looking over her shoulder as if someone were listening. Susan, whenever she joined the call, would be overly cheerful, almost performative, assuring me everything was just wonderful. But a mother knows. A mother feels it in her bones when something isn't right with her child. That gut feeling, persistent and icy, started to gnaw at me. It whispered of unease, of a truth being hidden just beneath the surface of Susan's forced smiles. Midway through the second week, that whisper became a shout. I couldn't shake the feeling. I knew, with a certainty that transcended logic, that I needed to see Lily. I cut my trip short, rescheduling vital meetings with a flimsy excuse about a family emergency. The drive back felt endless, each mile ticking by with excruciating slowness, my heart thumping a frantic rhythm against my ribs. I pictured Lily, happy and playing, trying to soothe the growing dread. But the image felt hollow. As I pulled into Susan's cul-de-sac, the first thing I noticed was Tom and Emma. They were laughing, chasing each other around the perfectly green lawn, their shouts echoing in the quiet afternoon. Carefree, unburdened. But Lily was nowhere in sight. My stomach clenched. I cut the engine, the sudden silence deafening, and walked straight to the front door, not bothering to knock. My voice, usually calm and measured, was sharp as I called out, "Lily! Lily, sweetie, I'm home." Silence. Only the faint sounds of cartoon chatter from the living room. I walked through the entryway, my eyes scanning the familiar space. The living room was a mess of toys and discarded snacks. The hallway, usually bustling, was empty. Then I heard a soft, rhythmic scraping sound coming from the kitchen, punctuated by what sounded like tiny, choked sobs. My blood ran cold. I pushed open the kitchen door, and the sight that greeted me froze me in place. There, perched precariously on a wobbly plastic stool at the oversized kitchen sink, stood my 5-year-old daughter, Lily. Her small hands, usually busy with crayons or building blocks, were submerged in soapy water, scrubbing furiously at a towering pile of dirty dishes. Plates, pots, glasses, a chaotic mountain of them. Her shoulders were shaking, a quiet, heartbreaking sob escaping her lips as she scrubbed, her little body trembling with the effort. The dining table, just a few feet away, was a disaster zone. Crumbs littered the surface, sticky rings from spilled drinks stained the wood, and a half-eaten sandwich lay abandoned. It was clear this was Lily's responsibility. Meanwhile, through the window, I could see Tom and Emma still playing outside, their laughter bright and carefree, completely oblivious, or perhaps uncaring, that their cousin was inside, essentially acting as an unpaid 5-year-old maid. Seeing my baby standing there like some household servant, at just 5 years old, something inside me broke completely. The carefully constructed facade of trust, of familial duty, shattered into a million irreparable pieces. My gut feeling hadn't been wrong. It had been a dire warning I should have heeded sooner. The anger, hot and visceral, ignited within me, replacing the dread with a fierce, protective rage. The sound of my own voice, raw and unfamiliar, ripped through the kitchen. "Susan!" I bellowed, the single name a coil of pure fury. Susan, who had just sauntered into the kitchen, a phone pressed to her ear, froze, her eyes widening as she registered my presence. Her casual demeanor, the way she was just about to pour herself a cup of coffee while my child slaved away, ignited a spark into a full-blown inferno. "Sarah, what are you doing here?" "You're early," she stammered, recovering quickly and feigning surprise, though her eyes darted to Lily and then to the sink, a telltale flicker of guilt crossing her face before she masked it. "Early," I retorted, my voice trembling with suppressed rage, but loud enough to carry through the open-plan living area. "I'm early because my daughter is in here, scrubbing dishes like a scullery maid, while your well-behaved children are playing outside, footloose and fancy-free. What on earth do you think you're doing, Susan?" Lily, startled by my sudden outburst, dropped a plate with a clatter, thankfully unbroken. She immediately burst into fresh tears, her small body shaking even more violently. I rushed to her, pulling her off the stool and into my arms, burying my face in her hair, inhaling the faint scent of dish soap and her innocent childhood. My heart ached with a pain so sharp it stole my breath. Susan, meanwhile, leaned against the counter, crossing her arms, her expression shifting from surprise to defensiveness. "Oh, Sarah, don't be so dramatic. She needs to learn responsibility. My kids don't like chores, and frankly, it's easier this way. Besides, she's perfectly capable. 5 is old enough to help around the house." She waved a dismissive hand, as if I were overreacting to a minor inconvenience, not witnessing the systematic emotional abuse of my child. "Responsibility," I echoed, pulling back slightly to look her squarely in the eye, my voice dangerously low now, each word dripping with ice. "Responsibility. My 5-year-old is doing your dishes. Your kids don't like chores. What kind of excuse is that, Susan? Is this what you call helping out? Is this why Lily avoids my calls, why she looks like she's carrying the weight of the world on her tiny shoulders?" My gaze swept over the messy dining table, the crumbs, the sticky rings. So this was all her too, wasn't it? Her responsibility, to clean up after your entitled children. The casual way she brushed it off, the sheer audacity of her excuses, stoked the flames of my anger even higher. I held Lily tighter, feeling her small frame tremble against mine. Susan's face, usually so composed, began to redden. "Honestly, Sarah, you're making a mountain out of a molehill. She's fine. We're family, we help each other out." "Help each other out?" I scoffed, a bitter laugh escaping my lips. "This isn't helping, Susan. This is exploitation. This is neglect. You took advantage of my trust, of my desperation to find a safe place for my daughter, and you turned her into your unpaid servant. What kind of sister does that?" My voice rose again, echoing slightly in the otherwise quiet house. I could feel the vibrations of it, probably carrying out to the neighbors. I didn't care. Let them hear. Let them know. Susan's face contorted in a mix of indignation and something akin to fear. "How dare you accuse me? After everything I've done for you, for Lily. What have you done, Susan?" I challenged, stepping away from her, my arm still securely wrapped around Lily. "What have you really done? Because from where I'm standing, you've shown me exactly who you are. And it's not the loving aunt, the supportive sister I thought I knew." I quickly scanned the room, looking for Lily's small backpack, her overnight bag. They were tucked away in a corner, almost hidden. I grabbed them, my movements sharp and decisive. As I moved towards the door, Lily clutched onto me, her sobs subsiding into quiet sniffles, her small face buried in my side. "We're leaving," I stated, my voice firm and resolute. Susan just stood there, speechless for once, watching me. I paused at the threshold, turning back to face her one last time. Her face was a mask of shock and something that looked suspiciously like a twisted sort of hurt. But my own hurt, my own betrayal, eclipsed any fleeting sympathy I might have felt. I looked at her, truly looked at her, and realized the sister I thought I had, the person I had entrusted my most precious possession to, was a stranger. "You've lost a sister today," I declared, my voice steady, betraying none of the turmoil raging within me. "And trust me, Susan, that's not my loss, it's yours." With those words, I turned my back on her messy kitchen, on her seemingly perfect life, and walked out, holding my little girl tightly. The heavy click of the front door closing behind us felt like the final, definitive sound of a chapter ending. A chapter 1 was ready to burn to the ground. The drive home was silent, save for Lily's quiet sniffling, which eventually gave way to the soft, rhythmic breathing of sleep as she curled up in her car seat. My hands gripped the steering wheel, knuckles white as the anger simmered, a churning vortex in my gut. I wasn't just angry. I was incandescent with a fury that demanded an outlet. It wasn't about being petty. It was about protecting my child and, by extension, protecting myself from Susan's insidious brand of manipulation. This wasn't just about a chore. It was about a fundamental breach of trust, a twisted sense of family responsibility that bordered on cruelty. I got Lily settled back in her own bed, her room a sanctuary of soft toys and pastel colors, and then I went straight to my laptop. My fingers flew across the keyboard, a clear, concise narrative forming in my mind. I knew better than to be defamatory or overly emotional. The goal wasn't to devolve into a public spat, but to expose the truth, to lift the veil on the perfect sister and aunt. I chose a parents' forum I was part of, a local community Facebook group, and even a discreet post on my Instagram stories, carefully crafting my words. I wrote, "I'm sharing something deeply personal today, not for drama, but as a cautionary tale about trusting even those closest to you. I recently had to travel for work and left my 5-year-old daughter, Lily, with my elder sister, Susan. I returned unexpectedly early to find Lily alone, quietly sobbing, washing a pile of dishes in the kitchen, while her cousins played outside. It wasn't a chore done with a parent. It was an imposition on a vulnerable child. This isn't about teaching responsibility. It's about a complete betrayal of trust and neglect of a child's well-being. My heart is broken for my daughter, and for the family bond one thought I had." I didn't name Susan explicitly on Instagram, but my closest friends and family knew exactly who I was talking about. On the local parents forum, I used slightly more detail, enough for those in our extended social circle to connect the dots. The response was immediate and overwhelming. My phone buzzed constantly with messages of support, of outrage. Friends called, expressing shock and sympathy. Local parents, many of whom knew Susan through school events or community groups, commented with subtle ostracism. "That's appalling, Sarah. Some people should never be trusted with children. Your poor little girl. You did the right thing walking away." The digital world, often a place for superficial connection, became a powerful tool for solidarity. Susan, the seemingly perfect homemaker, was suddenly viewed through a different, less flattering lens. The hot revenge didn't stop online. A week later, a long-planned family gathering for my cousin's engagement came around. I almost didn't go, but then I thought, why should I hide? This was my family too, and I refused to let Susan's actions dictate my life or Lily's. I arrived, Lily's hand firmly in mine. Her spirits already noticeably brighter after a week of undivided attention and gentle reassurance. Susan was there, of course, looking uncomfortable, avoiding my gaze. Her usual circle of friends and acquaintances seemed to keep a wider berth than usual. During dinner, the conversation turned, as it often does in large family gatherings, to general life updates. Someone asked Susan about her upcoming plans, and she started to launch into her usual polished spiel about her kids' achievements and her perfect marriage. That's when I subtly, almost imperceptibly, dropped a few truth bombs. Not with anger, but with a detached, almost regretful tone, as if I were merely musing aloud. "It's so important to have stability at home for kids," I began, nodding thoughtfully. "Especially when things are difficult, like, for instance, when a marriage is really struggling and finances are tight. It puts so much pressure on everyone." I didn't look at Susan, but I knew she heard me. Her face went ashen. I continued. "It just makes you realize how vital it is for adults to be truly present and responsible, even when their own lives are in turmoil. You can't put that burden on children." The air in the room shifted. A few knowing glances were exchanged. Susan's marriage troubles were a hushed family secret. Her husband's recent job loss even more so. I hadn't explicitly said anything about Lily, but the context, combined with the recent online buzz, was enough. I saw whispers break out among my aunts and uncles. Susan's carefully constructed image, meticulously maintained for years, began to crack under the weight of quiet, public scrutiny. It wasn't vindictive. It was a calibrated exposure, a quiet assertion that hypocrisy has consequences. My anger wasn't about petty drama. It was about standing up for my child, for myself, and for the integrity of truth. I wanted her to feel the discomfort she had so carelessly inflicted on my innocent daughter. After the family gathering, the hot rage began to cool, replaced by a steely resolve. My public pronouncements and strategic truth-telling had done their work. Now it was time for the cold revenge, a quieter, more enduring form of justice. This wasn't about drama or confrontation. It was about protecting my peace, nurturing my daughter, and creating a life so vibrant and fulfilling that Susan's fading presence wouldn't even register as a void. The first step was absolute severance. I cut off all ties with Susan. No more calls, no more texts, no more acknowledging her existence on social media. I blocked her number, unfriended her on every platform, and made it clear to any mutual acquaintances that I would not discuss her. It was a conscious decision, not born of childish spite, but of a deep understanding that some relationships, no matter how familial, are simply toxic and not worth the emotional toll. There was a quiet strength in that silence, a declaration that my peace and Lily's well-being were non-negotiable. With Susan's negative energy excised from our lives, I focused intensely on Lily. My daughter, though resilient, had been deeply affected by the experience. Her initial silence and fear gradually gave way to a need for reassurance and a hesitant willingness to talk. I enrolled her in a gentle play therapy group, which provided a safe space for her to process her feelings. We also embraced activities that were solely for her joy. Weekly ballet classes where she twirled with uninhibited glee, messy painting sessions where she could express herself with vibrant colors, and countless trips to the park where she could simply run free and be a 5-year-old. Our evenings became sacred rituals of baking cookies, building elaborate blanket forts, and reading bedtime stories, where I'd hold her close, reminding her how loved and cherished she was. Every, "I love you, Mommy," from her became a balm to my soul, a testament to her healing and our unbreakable bond. I also began to intentionally build a new support system, a circle of friends who genuinely uplifted me and understood the complexities of single motherhood. I connected with other single moms from Lily's preschool, joined a local book club, and rekindled friendships that had faded during the demands of my career and my previous reliance on Susan. These women became my tribe, a network of fierce, compassionate individuals who offered practical help, emotional solidarity, and unconditional support. They didn't judge. They simply understood the juggle, the triumphs, and the occasional tears. They celebrated Lily's milestones with me and offered a shoulder to lean on when the weight of it all felt heavy. This new community was a stark contrast to the superficiality and subtle judgment I had experienced within my wider family circle. Watching Susan's social standing crumble was a slow, almost imperceptible process from my vantage point, but it was happening. The whispers I had started at the family gathering evolved into a quiet understanding within our community. People who had once lauded her perfect family life now gave her polite but distant nods. Invitations to social events became less frequent. I heard snippets through the grapevine. A mutual friend mentioning Susan seemed a bit withdrawn, another noting how things at her house seemed different. It wasn't a dramatic downfall, but a gradual erosion of her carefully constructed image, a quiet consequence of her actions. I never actively sought updates or gloated. My satisfaction was purely internal, a quiet sense of vindication that the truth, however uncomfortable, had a way of surfacing. I found myself reflecting on the power of silence, how it could be both a shield and a weapon. My silence towards Susan was a shield, protecting Lily and me from further hurt. But it was also a weapon, allowing her to sit with the consequences of her actions without the distraction of my anger. The absence of my reaction, the lack of a dramatic response from me, forced her to confront the void she had created. Sometimes silence is the loudest answer, reverberating with unspoken truths and undeniable consequences. It's in that quiet, sustained absence that true accountability often finds its footing. The scent of warm chocolate chip cookies filled our kitchen, a comforting aroma that had become synonymous with peace in our home. Lily, her flour-dusted hands excitedly mixing another batch of dough, hummed a tuneless song, her earlier ordeal a distant memory, replaced by the simple joy of baking with her mom. I watched her, a profound sense of contentment settling over me, and reflected on the tumultuous journey that had brought us to this quiet, sacred moment. Admittedly, a part of me, the part that remembered childhood holidays and shared secrets, still missed Susan. The sister I had grown up with, the confidant I had once relied upon, was a ghost in my memories. There were moments, fleeting ones, when a particular song or an old photograph would bring a pang of nostalgia, a whisper of what if. But those pangs were quickly overshadowed by the vivid memory of Lily's tear-stained face at the kitchen sink. It was a stark reminder that while some bonds are forged in blood, others are severed by betrayal. I had to accept that some people, even family, simply couldn't be in your life if you were to truly protect your peace. It was a hard truth, one that went against the ingrained societal notion of unconditional family loyalty, but it was a truth I had learned through bitter experience. The path I chose wasn't easy. It demanded courage to confront, strength to walk away, and resilience to rebuild. But watching Lily flourish, seeing her laugh freely and confidently again, was all the validation I needed. She was thriving, not just surviving. She was secure in the knowledge that she was loved unconditionally, that her well-being was paramount, and that her mother would fight any battle to ensure her safety and happiness. That, more than any hot or cold revenge, was the true victory. Our evenings now were a tapestry of simple joys. Reading bedtime stories where Lily would snuggle close, sharing secrets under the glow of her nightlight, or simply talking about her day, her voice animated and full of life. These were the moments I cherished most, the quiet proof that we had healed, that we had found our rhythm, just the two of us. The silence from Susan was no longer a wound, but a serene backdrop to our new, harmonious life. It underscored the profound peace that comes from setting firm boundaries and honoring your own worth, and the worth of your child. If protecting your child meant walking away from your own family, would you do it? For me, there was never a choice. It was an instinct, a primal need to shield my little girl from harm, even if that harm came wrapped in the guise of family. My story isn't just about revenge. It's about the fierce, unwavering love of a mother, and the profound realization that true strength lies not in enduring toxic ties, but in having the courage to break them. It's about choosing peace, self-respect, and unadulterated love over the hollow promise of obligation. And so, here we are. My life with Lily isn't perfect, no life ever is, but it's ours. It's built on a foundation of honesty, fierce love, and the unshakable truth that protecting your child means drawing lines others might not understand. It means choosing peace, even if that choice feels lonely at times. But I've learned that loneliness is far preferable to the constant drain of toxic ties. My journey taught me that sometimes the most powerful act of love is the quiet decision to walk away, to build your own sanctuary, and to let the silence speak for itself.